What's up, guys? In the works, and I just got done with a pretty big marathon session of gaming last night, and one of the weapons that I had been working on a video for is the Famas. Well, during my Famas adventures, I decided to slap on the infrared night vision scope. Now, typically you would not think the Famas would be a good pairing for that scope because it's got a lot of recoil. It's already a pretty underpowered weapon in a lot of people's eyes, but that aside, I wanted to test out the night vision scope, and since I was working on some Famas stuff, I was like, you know what, screw it, let's put it on the Famas. And this particular loadout I'm using is my typical Famas setup of the foregrip with the flash suppressor. I find that it helps you really contain some of your recoil, really helps you stay on target. And some of my squad mates and I were talking about the infrared scope and how it used to be hands down the best scope when the game first came out. It was like built-in wall hacks, but then they nerfed it and then they nerfed it again, and it got to the point where you couldn't see anybody beyond 40 feet. Well, we were talking and I was like, yeah, I had seen a lot of people complaining about this particular scope on Battlelog in the forums, and I was like, I don't know what people are saying. They're saying it's back to the way it used to be. So once I unlocked all the stuff that I was working on for the Famas, I had everything ready to go. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna slap the infrared scope on this, just see what it's all about. And much to my delight, it seems to be back within, pretty similar to the way it was when the game first came out, or at least closer to it. It's more similar to those particular variations of the scope. It's definitely not as bad as it used to be. And the Aftermath maps seem to poise a really good situation to use it. Even though some of the maps are really, really bright, I find that it's helpful to have this scope on because you can pick people out of rubble. Now, I've seen tons of videos declaring that Famas with thermal is the worst possible setup you could ever have. The infrared scope with the Famas or any sort of assault rifle is just a horrible setup, but I don't know what it is. The Famas seems to just drop people in the instant. And I really, really, really like the sight on this weapon. That little bitty dot allows you to be pretty precise. Now, granted, it does come with a lot of disadvantages. You lose all your peripheral vision, and you don't get any zoom. You don't actually get zoom from this particular sight. I can't really call it a scope, I guess. I mean, I guess it's technically a scope, but it doesn't magnify anything. It's one time. So when you look through it, people are going to be the same distance than if you were just looking at them without aim down sight. So you got to keep that in mind. There's actually no optical zoom on the IRNV scope. And that's a pretty big disadvantage since you are giving up your peripheral vision. You have to take that into account when using this weapon. However, I find that with the flash suppressor, with the foregrip on this thing, it's actually pretty easy to tame the Famas. And usually if I see someone, I can take them down in an instant because it's 1,000 RPMs. It's not going to lose a lot of rate of fire battles. I mean, there's no assault rifle that shoots as fast as the Famas. So this thing is an absolute monster when it comes to that. So if you can stay on target, which is pretty easy with this sight since you're not increasing the recoil of it because there's no magnification, it's pretty easy to control it. And I don't have a lot of problems winning gunfights when aiming down sight with this. I've always been a really big fan of the way the little tiny dot on this thing looks. It seems to always be really easy to be precise with it, and that's one of the reasons why I used to use this scope so heavily when Battlefield 3 first came out. And you got to use this thing though, guys. You don't have to use it on the Famas. Obviously, this is not the ideal setup. Maybe try it out on some of the snipers. The G3 or even the AN94 would probably be a pretty good choice for this. You can actually have some pretty good results. I mean, I'm picking people off at some longer ranges with the Famas, and I don't know what it is, but it always seems easier for me to get all my bullets on target with the infrared scope sight, that little bitty dot, because like I said, you can be more precise with it. So normally I'd be looking at someone and I wouldn't have a chance in the world of picking them off with the Famas, because let's face it, this weapon is pretty bad at long ranges, but something about the infrared scope just kind of gives it a nice little bonus, and I actually enjoyed using it personally. I found it to be very effective, which was pretty surprising, all things considered, because when you think about the Famas, the last thing in the world you're ever going to think about is using a precision scope on it. But the infrared scope, like I said, doesn't magnify anything, so you're just looking at the normal 1 times, the real world. There's no like 3 times zoom, 1.5, none of that. It's just the normal, how you would see it if you weren't aimed down sight. So that's, fail nade right there. That's one thing you have to keep in mind when using it. I think that if you go into this thinking that you're going to be able to just rush in and like destroy face with it, Maybe not. You have to play a little bit more tactical with it. You have to be smart in the angles you take. It's more about picking people out of the environments. You see where their body is, and I think that's what makes it easier to get those bullets on target, because when you're using like a low zoom scope or anything like that, you tend to get distracted by a lot of things in the environment. And this really helps you pick them out. So these are the built-in wall hacks, guys. Use them. Try them out. I mean, it's not really a noob scope anymore. It's more of a novelty attachment at this point. But it can be a lot of fun, especially since Battlefield 3 is, it's getting up there in age, and you're looking for more fun things to do. Maybe you might want to try out the Famas with the IRNV flash suppressor and foregrip. Now, I have tried it without the foregrip, and it's really not that much different. So I tend to just leave the foregrip on there because it does reduce some of that side-to-side thrashing that the Famas has. So, I mean, it's really up to you guys. I mean, if you really want to, you could take off the flash suppressor and put on the heavy barrel if you wanted more accuracy. But I personally find the Famas to be a perfect pairing for the flash suppressor. So hopefully you did enjoy this quick little look though at the infrared scope. It's definitely back to where maybe it used to be. It might not be as good as it was when the game first came out, when it had unlimited range, but it's definitely fun to use. But if you missed any of my other videos, I did a top games of 2012 yesterday, and you might want to check that out because that was actually a pretty cool video if you're looking to try out some new games. And before that, I actually did a year of Battlefield 3 Premium, kind of a reflection on the 2012 year of Battlefield 3. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this though. I'll see you next time. Peace.